Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. As we start, can you say a few words about your current role and what's on your purview?
Yeah, no, thanks, Misha. So Mike Baker, I've been in cybersecurity for, I'm embarrassed to say, probably 30 years, something close to that. I work for Noname Security. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer. I've been there working on my fourth year now at Noname, and really the last three companies I've approach the world from a startup perspective. I love young companies, helping build young companies into billion or multi-billion-dollar companies, and helping an acquisition or go IPO, and so it's become a particular passion of mine, and that's really where we're headed with Noname. We've raised over 200 million. We have couple hundred customers. It's been an extraordinary ride, and been a lot of fun. So
Amazing.
yeah.
Amazing. And as Chief Revenue Officer, I assume all things sales are all up to you. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'll go to market. So that includes customer success as well. So anything that relates to the customer is in the go-to-market organization, which myself and our team run it and are responsible for the execution of it.
Mm-hmm. And is it channel, outbound, SDRs, BDRs?
Yeah, we have the complete set. We think about the market as a channel first market. So we really, 90 never say never, but it's sort of our 99.9% rule is that we have partners engaged in all of our opportunities. We help our partners help us. We look at the complete ecosystem of strategic partnerships really as our go-to-market. So we are very maniacal about that point of being channel first and really channel only.
I understand. Well, this kind of paints the picture of this dot in the arc. But can you talk a little bit? How did you get into cybersecurity sales? You mentioned you love getting smaller companies to this finish line. But it seems like you had experience of doing exactly that in the past.
Yeah, I'll just share a personal story. My mom raised seven of us. I grew up in a small town in Colorado, and my dad had cancer when I was super young. He ended up living for quite a while, but chemotherapy really did a number on his brain. So he's essentially a vegetable for the last 25 years of his life. So my mom, before my dad got sick, they had seven kids. I was the second oldest, six boys, one girl. And it was a struggle, right? Like my mom, we didn't have money. We were actually, like the parish priest would come and pay our electric bill. And it was an extraordinary childhood. And from a perspective of, I learned two really important lessons that have stayed with me that my mom taught me. She's really just this extraordinary mentor for me. She taught me, one is this concept of unconditional love. And it came in that form is that, look, seven children, we weren't the best children on the planet either. We were quite evil, I think. I think seven children together are that's evil just by itself. But there's no stop. Like our mom never stopped loving us, and she showed it in a lot of different ways, but this was just this persistent, continuous love, and I felt it specifically, and it stayed with me. And then the second lesson, and I'll talk how it relates back to the business in a second, but the second lesson that was really important is never quit. So during these and everybody can imagine it's hard enough to, like, I have five kids. That was extraordinary, but I had a very supportive wife, and there's two of us, and it was a workout. And one with seven is just unbelievable, right? And so my mom just never quit. Like, she always found a way to make things happen that seemed impossible, but yet she believed. She made it happen, by magic. I'm not quite sure how it happened, but it gave me these two lessons. And so as I left I left the house when I was 18. I graduated from high school, and I didn't go into college. I ended up enlisting in the Navy, and I found out about Navy SEALs, and so I decided to try it to become a Navy SEAL, and it was a really extraordinary experience. And the only reason I made it to become a Navy SEAL was because of those two lessons of this brotherhood that's in SEAL team, where you never quit, and you there's genuine love and respect, and you just always look out for your brother, your teammate, your Navy SEAL standing left to right to you. And that became the model for my life. So I spent 6 years in the Navy, got out, became an engineer, worked at Los Alamos for a handful of years. And what I discovered at Los Alamos is that I needed something more exciting. I needed something with that, like I had gone from being, jumping out of airplanes and, just the ultimate boyhood, Navy SEALs it's just the ultimate experience. And then as an engineer, it's mentally stimulating, but it didn't have the adrenaline that I really needed. And so what I discovered when I was an engineer is that I met a couple of sales guys in Los Alamos, and that led me to sales. And I understood that seemed like a business for me, where you could have a roller coaster, you could have adrenaline, you could get your heart into it, you could take risks, and but you could also make an extraordinary living. And so that set me on the path to sales. And then it was quite a natural, coming from Los Alamos and being aware of cyber, led me to a path into cybersecurity. And so I've been at, I don't know, six or seven different companies, but McAfee being my longest stint. That's where I learned the most, but also had an extraordinary experience at McAfee. And then after McAfee, and I went from a rep to reporting to the CEO there at McAfee. And then from there, I was at Cylance very early, and Armis after that very early. And both those were turned into billion-dollar acquisitions. And now I'm at Noname. So it's a fun ride, but a lot of it is, back to just, I think all of us have this center story where who impacted us the most and why we're here. And it's this idea of never quitting and just giving lots of love and receiving it. And it's been an extraordinary life for me.
What an amazing story.
Thank you, Misha.
And congrats. I think it's very inspiring. I hope your team knows your story and that's follows you. Because I think what you say makes it's often what do you do is important, but probably even more important is why. And if you understand why, it gets you so much further. It's tremendous. A friend of mine turned me into it's David Goggins, and his story, how he got turned down because he was not fit, and he was written off, and then he was like, watch me. And then and I think he became famous after this book, Living with a SEAL, when it's easy, I forgot his last name, Itzler, heard Goggins speak, got inspired, and say, hey, how do you like about living with me for a few weeks, thinking he would never show up. And he next day is like, let's go, we're running 5 a.m. It's certainly
I think the thing that I love SEAL team, and that experience is extraordinary, but I think that we all have this this Navy SEAL inside of us, and part of it, the branding of SEAL team has it's an extraordinary brand now, and everybody that was a SEAL seemingly could cure cancer. Like, you have this experience, and now all of a sudden you can do a lot of different things. And there's a lot of truth to that, because there's this inner confidence that if you can do what SEALs do, you can do anything. And so that's where there's truth in that. And so from my perspective, I just felt really lucky to be working with these unbelievable men who, under the most incredible pressure, could deliver results. and that's, so I always think about the pressure that we have in sales. You know, you got to make the quarter, you got to make the year, you got to make your number. You have to, you know, it pales in comparison, but it doesn't. Like, it's sort of the same. It's an
We do.
internal desire to succeed, right? So
It's true. I mean, the source is the same, but I often hear, obviously kind of secondhand, but I often hear that when people come from deployment, like the adrenaline rush and the high and the focus, it just nothing compares. I mean, obviously they're equipped for dealing with problems that people think unsurmountable, but look, it's nothing to what like a real action would present. But I think a lot of them, some of them, find that when they come back, it just nothing really
nothing
really compares.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I guess finding a new challenge in sales, it's
Yeah.
probably
It's like I think I'm very like, I'm like, if nothing else in my life, I have a lot of grace in my life. I just feel really fortunate, and I feel really lucky, and I have a lot of grace, and I built a bridge. A bridge was built for me. However it works, however the universe works, but I was able to bridge that adrenaline from that experience into my sales career, and I've never looked back. Like, I have I'm starting to be as old as dirt now, you know, so it's I get harassed, you know, because my boss is, I think, 32 years old, and I'm not 32 years old, and I like have so much fun with him because he sees the world from a different perspective, and I've learned so much from the founders at Noname. They're really good guys, and just an extraordinary team, but they're much younger than me, but you learn and you grow, and every day for me is exciting. And so the concept of retirement is completely foreign for me. You know, it's just like I'll do, you know, something magical will happen with Noname, and I'll do this two or three more times, you know, and just because I enjoy it, not necessarily, you know, the money thing is more like scoreboard, you know, you kind of track it as but what's really fun is loving who you work with and being around people that you really care for, and helping them get to places that they've never thought that they could get to. That's the reward these days, you know. When you build a company, it's actually not a company. You build dozens and dozens of people, and they get experiences that they never would have been able to have before, and sends them in a completely different new horizon because of those experiences. And so that's what's neat about young companies, you know, is just you can just have this, you can have 1 year growth, and you can have 4 years of growth in 1 year is what I've seen.
Certainly. No, and it's obviously you have quite a few notches in your belt with McAfee acquired, Silence acquired. So it's
Armis was also, it went through an acquisition. It was $1 billion. I was at Armis. I was the second U.S. employee hired, first in the go-to-market organization, and we built that thing out. And there was an equity event for over $1 billion. It you know, a bunch of folks did quite well, you know, and Armis is still an extraordinary company, and the founders of Armis are great friends of mine, and they continue to do amazing things. So I always, you know, hope the best for Armis. It's a great company. So
it's amazing. Well, switching gears a little bit. So I mean, cybersecurity as an industry, as a space. I mean, it seems like it's exploding. Up until recently, there's so much venture money that was going in it, and I think there's a lot more awareness from SAC telling everyone they have 4 days to report a breach if they were breached, or requiring that board members should get some perspective, cybersecurity perspective.
yeah.
So I think just awareness growth. There are just a lot of people see opportunity in the space, and a lot of people are looking to make a career. So obviously, not everyone would have the benefits and advantages of going through the Navy SEAL team as a
I don't think that's the preferred route to go into cybersecurity sales, but it's a good route, right?
Pretty tough one. But from your vantage point, what would be your advice for someone who is maybe looking to transition from technology sales into cybersecurity, or maybe even more upstream of that, maybe just in college trying to figure out,
Yeah.
well, they have aptitude for sales and they're looking at cybersecurity space as a potential career. There are so many things one can be doing, from networking, from courses to by internships, whatnot. But
Yeah.
it's easy to wait. Time is a very precious resource.
Yeah.
And even though you're not 32, but you look like you were 39, maybe. So it's
You're generous.
you,
Yeah.
so you must have started your career when you were 10, I'm sure. But what will be your advice from your vantage point? What are the two or three things maybe more junior professionals in sales should focus on to set them up for success?
Yeah, I love the question. And there's a couple different ways I can answer it, but I would say, back to my personal story, I think it's quite relevant for everybody, right? Is to figure out what your personal story is, right? Because what we're even training our sales team to do is really to tell the same story to our customers and our prospects and our partners, so we can make this an emotional connection. Like, so Misa, so you know me better now than you knew me before, but you also know me better than 99% of the people on the planet, sort of thing, right? And so, but the most important thing is I know me, right? And I understand kind of the two or three things that are the most important thing to me. So I think that from as you make a decision that you're going to go into sales, is you figure out who you are and what you're about, right? And then you have some sort of foundation. And I think that when I look at the market today, we're hiring, right? Like, we have 5 field openings right now. So this conversation is quite relevant, honestly. From a Noname Security, we're looking for five field reps and maybe more in the US. Our business is exploding and we're excited about it. So when what I'm looking for is, and if I were in, that slot coming out of college, or coming out of, you're an inside sales rep and you want to move to field, the number one most important thing is energy in this world. It's so important to have energy. And what I'm talking about is being on fire, of just really just being ready, prepared, having enthusiasm and passion and emotion, that you care. So from an these are things that you just create. You just decide. It's a decision to have energy, to have emotion, to be engaged, to look people in the eye, and to really care. Right. So I think that's in that bucket, right? I think that's really, and then there's this second piece of, when you make this decision to go into sales, then you prepare, right? Like, you think about, okay, so who am I, like, who's my target? Who do I want to interview with? Who are the 5 companies? And then start to prepare, because when you think about the most important relationships in your life, they're really sales relationships, right? I'll use the example of my wife, Jill, right? Like, if you guys are looking at me right now, if you saw my wife, you'd say, Michael, that was the ultimate sales job that you did, because there is no way that woman should be with you. But there's truth to it, right? Is it like, I decided that Jill was going to be my wife when I saw her on a lacrosse field. And I was just like, oh, like, this woman, I love this woman. Like, and I hadn't even talked to her yet. Right. And so I just made a decision. I think decisions are really important, as you start to map out your career or map out your relationships and get committed to them. And they won't all work, right? Like, there's no undefeated sales reps on the planet. We all lose deals. We all don't get jobs. We all get fired. It's being able to make a decision, to get committed, to do research, to be prepared, to look for mentors. I mentor several people. It's such a opportunity for give back. So I never hesitate to, even myself, I look for coaches to help me get to the next level. as a junior, you know, coming out of college or a junior rep, you should absolutely, whether it's in a book or in a human or both or whatever that is, you're looking for mentorship, but you want to be prepared. You want to have a concept of, as you go in and go through the interview process and win the job, and then now you're in the job and now it's just game on, right? And that's when you just have to turn the afterburners on and just work and look for partnerships and look for mentors and look to create relationships. And I think the mastery of life, honestly, is when somebody from the outside in can't tell whether you're working or you're playing. And that's really how I've operated my life, specifically the last probably 15 years, where I combine the both. Like we'll go on vacation. I have 5 kids. Sometimes we'll take the kids, sometimes we won't. But I'm always doing both, and the family's used to it. And I'm not saying that this is for everybody, but I am saying that there's always this opportunity to talk to one more person or to interact, and you just never know the magic that can happen. I just believe there's magic all around us all the time, and it's a super fun sort of game of trying to find what's the magical thing that's going to happen today. So it's having optimism, it's being prepared, it's having energy, it's really believing that you've made the right choice. And I think once a year, it's okay to question, am I doing the right thing? Do I need to switch companies? I'll do sort of kind of around the end of the year. I'll just kind of, take a look around and say that, like, am I in the right place? Am I doing the right things? And kind of do it just an internal goal setting, but not just goal setting, but really an evaluation, just to make sure I'm on a path that really suits me and excites me. But the only problem with asking questions is it also creates doubt, and doubt is helpful at times, but not all the time. Like it's good for 3 days out of 365 days, but doubt's not good. Like then you just got to go back to work and you got to turn it back on, and you got to, and so I think in there is an answer, Misha. I'm not sure that it was terribly helpful, but glad to take some more questions.
I think it is helpful because, well, one, you need energy, because if you want to be successful in a field, you have to climb the ladder, right? And you can't be switching ladders every 2 years.
Yeah.
It has to be one. And if you pick it, it's something you need to be prepared to be excited for a long period of time, right? So it's certainly, I think it's very good insight. And also, I'm also of the same mind that everyone, whether they realize it or not, everyone is a salesperson, whether they like it or not, whether they realize.
No, I know. I think there's a lot of. I was an engineer. Trust me, like there's no genetic salesperson in Mike Baker, right? Like it was just a decision that, because naturally I'm okay with numbers, but I was like, look, I worked at Los Alamos. The whole world is safer that I'm no longer there because I'm not a very good engineer. but I wasn't ever like my mom, she kind of drilled it into my head is Michael, you need to be a doctor, lawyer, or an engineer. There was no salesperson in that conversation, right? But I get to use all those skills, that I've used at Los Alamos, at SEAL Team, as a kid. So I agree. But I also understand why people resist it, because there's this, used car salesman. I think the other thing that I would say about sales, right, when it's done correctly, it's the most honorable service on the planet, because there's nothing better, right? Like, because you get to help people solve problems, and it's totally giver's world, right? Like you get to exude and be part of this extraordinary service where you can solve these massive problems for the U.S. Department of Defense or the largest organizations on the planet, AT&T, all these companies I've had the opportunity to work with and help them solve. It's just incredible, right? Of just that alone. And then, then there's a huge financial benefit to it. But if you come to it from a perspective of service and honor, and it's extraordinary, right? Like it's just really extraordinary.
I absolutely agree. I think it's my background is not in sales, but I think it's quite a rush when people give you money and then thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
I can think of like a few things like work-wise, like how rewarding and exhilarating can be if you use words to convince someone to give you money without you're not forcing them. They
Yeah,
willingly
that's right.
give you money, and then at the end they thanked you for
For delivering.
what I was for delivery, which I think is I think it's magical, like that you
Yeah.
can persuade someone. And I think it's obviously it's a lot more nuanced and there's a lot more involved, and then kind of there is B2C, there's B2B, there are different price points, et cetera. But in a nutshell, it's using, and I think it's also interesting that you said it's um, about like everyone is a salesperson. It's a lot of it is persuasion, and the other thing that I think was key, helping people solve problems. And I think if you lead with getting people educated, excited, scared, anxious about a problem, well, it's API security, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. Yeah, that's right.
We're not going to get far if we just say, hey, there's yet another dashboard. I know you have 50 vendors, between 50 to 100 vendors, and all of them have dashboards, but here's another one. Look how pretty it is. And there's 10,000 alerts that you need to sift through by Monday next week.
Yeah.
And you can't even tell which one is important, which one is not.
Yeah.
Are you excited? No, I'm not excited.
Yeah.
But if you educate people on the problem, I think that's when the kind of the magic happens. Speaking of which, with this education part, one thing, and we talked with sales executives and marketing executives.
Yeah.
I think, in a way, the work for sales is somewhat easy because most of the time you're dealing with someone who's showing intent. They either on your website searching or they're raising their hand. They stop at your booth at RSA or Black Hat. They respond to either your channel partners, kind of pitching them a certain solution. So in a certain way, kind of life is easy in that regard. But what a lot of executives that we talk to that tell us is that oftentimes it's only a fairly small fraction of your total addressable market. And the kind of the bigger challenge is, how do you engage people who are earlier in their customer journey? Maybe they're aware of the problem, maybe not. Maybe they're aware of the space, the vendor space, maybe not. But they're not responding, they're not engaging, not because they're not qualified, they are by their industry and company and title, but they're just ignoring everything that's being sent their way. And more likely than not, the reason for this is they're just busy solving problems other than the one that your solution is solving.
Yes.
The challenge is, how do you evangelize and educate someone who doesn't really want to talk to you and who gets most of the education? There's this new concept. There's always kind of a new concept. It was inbound for a while. Then there was, I think everyone is fascinated by ChatGPT and AI, but there is kind of a term that I picked up recently, the dark funnels.
Oh, yeah.
The things that cannot be picked up by attribution software and some conversation that happened and over a drink in a bar or in private Slack channels or over text messages between friends that there's no visibility for vendors, there's no attribution, but it's really kind of driving this path on the customer journey, the dark funnels. How do you think about that? Are you just saying it's a marketing problem and let them deal with this, or like how would you think?
I again, it's terrific.
Loaded question.
It's so philosophically, how I think about if we don't sell product, it's a sales problem, right? It's not a marketing problem, it's not a product problem, it's not a customer problem, it's a sales problem. So it's when you do that, you take on and once you're responsible, then you have control, like at some level of control. Like you say, so I own this. And do I want my marketing brothers and sisters to help? Yeah. Do I want the product team to help? Yes, absolutely. It's still one team and we're rowing the boat in the same direction. And then the other piece of your question before the answer is that at any point in time, whether they're buying tires or toilets for your house or API security, there's about, I forget what the number is, but it's somewhere around 0.5% are in the market for any particular product at a time, that are really in the market, that they're actually buying it, right? And so it's very small, right? And so and then when you look at, you know, my world at Noname, and I think that's true for when you think of API security, we're talking about 1,000. You know, we're like the elite of it. We're fortunate on the global 1,000, global 2,000, and so the market's even smaller, right? And so your question becomes even more relevant: is how do I get to those folks, and how does my team get to them, and how do we have success? And so what, you know, I sort of hinted at it early on, is that I have a team of sellers, and I think of myself, I'm the CRO, but I'm a seller. Like, I love sales, and we're constantly looking for leverage and looking for people that know people, that get into other people's networks. So the dark funnels that you're talking about occur with partners, they occur with friends, and so I'm may not be that CISO's friend, but I know that I'm at least, like, I'm 1 degree or 2 degrees out. And so if I can get to 1 degree, or if I can get right next to that friend who can give me a recommendation to get in. And so more and more, we have an extraordinary BDR team. We still do a lot of outbound calling. We do sequences. We do it, and it works. Like, it works. But it's not the only thing that we look at. Our go-to-market is all about strategic partnerships, and the strategic piece is key for Noname, because we value the partnerships. It's a win-win-win relationship: win for the end user, win for the partner, win for Noname. And we get close to our partners, and they trust us. And what ends up happening is we get introduced to accounts that we would never have exposure to. And this has really been like the last 2 companies where this is something that I've driven home for myself first, and that now organizationally, of you have to figure out how to get inside those dark funnels, to your point, Misha. And how do you get there? You can't always do it by yourself. And so I think about my world as mentoring, as partnering, as creating relationships, of doing business with friends, and where you have a trusted relationship, and you can get places in those sorts of relationships that you just can't get to by yourself. It's hard, right? And so it, you know, long-winded answer, but it's as you and I are talking, and it's why it's so important that you understand who I am and where I came from and how I got here, because you know now that we have a level of trust for each other. And so it's just key, because once you can build that trust, and then you build relevancy, because you have something that will solve maybe not your friend's problem, but your friend's problem, that now you have a path, right? So, well,
it sounds like it's a team sport. It's a team sport, and it's a relationship. It's not about transactions. It's not about here is the you know.
And it's a long game too, right? Like, it's not
exactly. Well, that's what I meant by it. So it's a relationship, not a transaction. If you treat it as a long game, if you treat it as a team sport, it's your actions today may bear fruit.
Yeah.
But you have enough of those conversations, enough of those. If you give enough, and the universe will start giving back at some point. So
it's where I've landed, and so, people can call it woo-woo, but I do believe in this concept of I'm not interested in horse trading, right? Like, I don't need horse trading is not interesting to me. What's interesting to me is that I create value. Like, I create value in this conversation. I hope folks who are listening to it get something out of it, that there's something that is measurable, and they can take and use, and then give the gift forward, right? And so I think about this idea of service and serving, and and giving, right? And giving with really no expectation to get back.
Absolutely.
It's a mindset. It doesn't mean that look, we're professionals and we're business people and we have 24 hours in a day and we have to do our jobs. But there is a mindset where it's giving first, it's creating value first, it's being first, right? And with slow down on the expectation. Let's just give the gift. Enjoy giving the gift. Like when I give a gift, I don't give a gift to get approval or to get even a thank you. The gift is in the giving. Like when I give a gift, it's like, man, it feels good to give this thing, right? Like when right?
You're not keeping score. It's not like, well,
Yeah.
I gave you 3 gifts and you give me
Yeah.
2.
Yeah.
Bring
And it
it.
happens in sales a lot. Like there's a lot of scorekeeping, right? And where I'm sort of headed in with our team and my career is let's put that scoreboard in our back pocket and let's just go out and create a bunch of value for our prospects and our partners and our customers. And I think it'll work. I like the bet. Like that's the bet that we've taken, and we've had extraordinary success. We've at Noname, we're headed into our 4th year selling, and we're literally unmatched in terms of the startup world and what our numbers are and where we are. So I think we're doing okay.
It's amazing. Congrats.
Thank you.
I know we're coming up on time. I guess last question.
Sure.
Imagine you have a crystal ball and you can see into the future. In the future, 6 months from now, 12 months from now, chief revenue officers of cybersecurity companies will be excited, obsessed, worried about what 2-3 trends that are maybe will play out in your view in the near future.
Like this is a biased question, so I apologize. But I think for the last 20 years, we've dealt with endpoint security, right? And, you look at the great companies like McAfee and Symantec, and now you have a CrowdStrike and SentinelOne and just extraordinary companies. And they're solving the endpoint security. I think in the very near future, I don't know if it's within a year or not, but I think the real endpoint is APIs, right? Like that's where data transfers, everything. I have to be careful with my words, but like everything is going away. It's going virtual, right? Like it's going into the cloud. You're not going to have hardware to put agents on. It's so that transformation is happening, and it makes cybersecurity even more valuable because now the data is even more accessible. And so it makes it more at risk, and so there's more opportunity to help customers. And APIs is one. Applications would be another example. So that world of where the data is coming and going, and the API is the channel, and securing that transaction is I think will be just absolutely crucial. It's crucial today. A year from now, it'll be more. As the years go on, it'll be even more, and there'll be more problems that morph out of. Once you solve this problem, you always have another. It's a harder, larger, but more important problem. But I think it's in that this digital transformation that we've been. I don't like those kind of words because they don't mean anything. But there is this movement to the cloud, to virtual, and move faster and to satisfy customers. We have these things now, and these are nothing but APIs. Like and there's billions of phones that are on the planet, and it's all run by APIs. So I picked a market. I picked to work with Noname for a reason. Over 3 years ago, and I feel really fortunate to be here and where we're headed, and the problem just keeps getting larger and bigger. And I think that that's a set that I'm focused on. I'm sure there's other things that some of your other guests will tackle, but that's sort of where my brain's at. Yeah.
Certainly. Well, it's to your point that cybersecurity is growing, and API security within it is growing faster. So it's a good bet to make. Mike, thank you so much. This has been tremendous. It was a pleasure to meet you, and amazing story. Congrats on your success. I'm really appreciative of you taking time for this and sharing your story. I think a lot of people will find it interesting and useful and helpful where can people find you? What's the best way to connect?
I'm on LinkedIn, Michael Inge Baker. You can find me on LinkedIn. And through that, I'm glad to connect in any way I can help your audience, Misha. You'll find me pretty responsive on LinkedIn, and let's if any way I can help, whether it's mentoring or networking, I'm just it's sort of my world these days. And so I also am very grateful to meet you, and thank you for the opportunity to meet your audience, and it's just super fun for me. So thank you
Absolutely.
so much. I appreciate the gift.